I don't believe what I just saw.
This is one of the great moments in the history of baseball.
You believe in miracles? Yes!
Is this the dagger?
All right, we are here with This Day in Sports, the December 6th edition. And of course, on this show, what we do is we pick a random day in sports history. We relay to you all the fun and exciting things that happened on that day, or maybe just completely obscure, boring, who knows what on that day that might be important to one of us. I'm Sandy Jobin Bevins, here with
Matt Kippen.
And Mike Shera.
Okay.
Sorry, I thought Matt was going to say more.
Everyone put their voice over voice on for that.
Yeah.
Let's try and tighten that one.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do around the horn one more time.
Okay, sure. I'm here with some couple friends of mine, but I am Sandy Jobin Bevins, and this is
Matt Kippen and
Mike Shera.
There's still a bit of a pause there.
What's the show I'm thinking of that you look like the host right now? You look like the host of that show. What's it called? Insanity? Or what's that show called where they show video clips of people falling over? And
Yeah.
What's that called?
The skateboard guy.
Yeah. We'll get to that.
Oh, Rob Diedrich.
Yeah, Rob Diedrich.
Kippen is.
What I try to do is get in your head immediately.
We've started really well.
That show's like 40 seasons. So
I'm still not sure what we're doing on this show exactly. So we take a calendar date.
We take a calendar date, which we picked December 6th for this episode.
Yeah. Okay.
And we talk about different things that happen in sports history on December 6th, any year. Some of them are like things that probably everybody knows about. Other things are going to be a little obscure. We celebrate that day, and then pretty much it's a free-for-all. What do we want to do with the show? So we often have a draft, which is very exciting. That's how we kind of...
We're doing today.
The third act, for example, would be the draft we're going to have today. More details on that. We also have some facts that maybe only you care about, Matt.
Okay.
So welcome to the show.
And we also have a special guest every week, too, right?
We always do a special
analyze
guest.
our draft. And
That's
this week
right.
is no exception.
No exception. We're going to have a surprise guest to analyze our handiwork in the draft. So December 6th, we have a bunch of different things that happen on December 6th. And Mike, you are usually the main curator of this list.
Okay.
What is the first thing you want to talk about that happened on December 6th in sports history?
Oh, okay. It's not necessarily the most important thing, I wouldn't say. But off the top of my head, I'd say on this day, December 6th, 1960, the American League granted an expansion franchise to film and country music star Gene Autry, and that team would become the Los Angeles Angels.
Yes.
And he owned the team until 1996. He died 4 years before the Angels won their first and only World Series. And he purchased the rights to the expansion team for a paltry $350,000 in 1960.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. So Gene
I think
Autry,
they're worth more than that now.
I mean, that's obviously a huge celebrity owns this team. And is there any other big examples in sports history of like a guy like that? Like it was Magic Johnson's a former athlete, but like acting wise, or
Will Ferrell owns the LA soccer team.
Good example, because Drew
Or
Carey,
he's an owner.
yeah,
Like
Drew
he's
Carey
not
is
the
in
only-
Seattle with the team, the Seattle team. So there's different.
Bill
celebrities.
Maher owns a bit of the Mets, I think, too.
Bill Maher owns some of the Mets.
Not a lot, but I think
Right.
he's a stakeholder. He just sold it. Okay.
Okay,
Frank's already correcting me.
he's editing you already.
He's saving himself some time.
Matthew McConaughey's with the Austin football soccer team.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so there you go. So Gene Autry, trend starter.
I think so. There was a team called the Hollywood Stars.
Yeah.
That existed in that area before that, and that was all sort of co-ownership by a lot of Hollywood stars. But the main owner of that Hollywood Stars team was the guy who owned the Brown Derby restaurant.
Yeah.
And that had this groundswell. It was a minor league team that people really wanted baseball in LA. And that's when you ended up getting the Dodgers there, obviously, because a lot of these celebrities would just support this team. Like Groucho Marx's kid said famously, I thought dinner was peanuts and a pop for years because Groucho took his kid to every single Hollywood Stars game. And that's all he ate all summer.
And it was, that's right. And I've heard stories of that team, but I don't know.
It's pretty phenomenal. Like Gary Cooper would hand out programs. Like everyone was so into this team. So that was, I think, what might have gotten into Gene Autry's head eventually to say, I got to get another team in LA.
Sure.
Okay, Matt, what do you got?
Okay, let's go. December 6th, 2008. The Dream Match in boxing. Do you guys remember the Dream Match? Do you know who this is?
2008. Who's that?
So that was Oscar De La Hoya and Manny Pacquiao at the MGM Grand, the Garden Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. And Pacquiao defeated De La Hoya by technical knockout. But you don't remember this?
I don't know a ton about it other than I once worked on a cruise ship and the Filipino crew would watch Pacquiao like all the time.
They were really into him.
Oh yeah, he's like a god.
They weren't cheering for De La Hoya.
No, and that's why I probably saw some footage of that because
Yeah.
it was on Filipino Independence Day.
Were you on the high seas in 08?
2010. So
Oh, wow.
pretty much it's
Pretty
right.
much,
It's definitely in there. Thank you for saying the high seas. It made that cruise ship experience sound very special.
Well, no belts were disputed in the match, but it was a lot of people looking forward to it.
Yeah, that was there was a lot of hype about that, I remember.
I thought this was interesting. In 1952, December 6, 1952, the Detroit Red Wings defeat Chicago Blackhawks 2-0 in a game played in Indianapolis. It is the first NHL game played in a non-NHL city since 1928. And it happened because both teams' home arenas were booked that night. And the only thing is, now we also talk about a fact that no one else may care about.
Yes,
you
sir.
might say, why did this happen? Well, the game was supposed to be on November 4th, but that was actually the presidential election night in 1952. So they decided no hockey games that night, so people will go vote and they'll give more care about that. That's when Eisenhower became president. So it's Ike's fault that they had to play in Indianapolis.
Right. In Indianapolis, too.
Yeah, of all
Hockey
places.
hotbed.
Yeah. Well, but then Indianapolis was the Racers. Is that the team that Gretzky played for? Indianapolis.
Briefly, yep.
Because Indianapolis was the first pro team that signed Gretzky, right?
Yep. Yeah, he played for the Sioux Greyhounds and then
Yeah, and then that was basically just to own him.
Yeah, and then Pocklington bought him from the
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my fact that maybe nobody cares about. But the reason they moved the game is because of the election on November 4th. I looked up to see what was happening in each of those arenas that night, so they couldn't have a hockey game. Couldn't get any information.
No. Yeah.
But if someone out there wants to give us an email,
Please do. You can
please
kind of-
tell us what was happening.
Yeah, contact Frank. We'll have you on the show.
Mike, you got another one of these?
This is possibly, this could qualify as one that only I give a shit about. After just 3 weeks on Broadway on this day in 1981, a new musical about Jackie Robinson announced that it would close later that week. The show drew generally positive reviews, except from Frank Rich of the New York Times, who crushed it, and apparently that really killed any momentum it had. It starred David Alan Grier of In Living Color fame as Jackie Robinson, and it was nominated for 3 Tony Awards that year, but did not win any. Now, I've spent my adult life working in the theater, and I've spent my whole life being a sports fan. I have never heard of this show since or before, but I think it may be due for a revival. Matt says he thinks maybe it should have had a different title that might have helped.
Well, yeah. Get the name in there and maybe
Jackie.
Yeah. I would like to see we're going to find out this Frank Rich review at some point to see the guy who didn't like the show.
Yeah.
Obviously a racist.
We're gonna talk to him.
Not Frank Reich, though.
No.
No. Not noted NFL.
And it's actually
QB.
Frank Rich who's coming on the show to evaluate our draft later.
Oh, fantastic.
We're drafting Broadway musicals.
Oh,
in
this is
show.
great. He's going to hate all of them.
Yeah. I'm picking all naked Broadway musicals.
Obviously, this guy's a prick, right?
Yeah.
Frank Rich is a prick.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, good.
I don't know.
He's like he's like
yeah.
Like if did he not want? I'm not gonna,
I don't-
There's so many ways I could go with this to burn this guy. Is it Dixie Walker? Is that the guy who notably hated that Jackie had broken the color barrier?
He's one of them. Yeah.
Frank Rich is the
he
Dixie
wasn't
Walker.
alone. He wasn't alone.
He's the Dixie Walker of New York Times.
That's right.
there.
Yeah.
There he is. Matt, you got one of these?
1990, December 6, 1990, the NHL granted conditional membership to Tampa Bay and Ottawa. Ottawa coming back, of course, and Tampa Bay. The group was fronted by Phil Esposito and his brother.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so we knew that Ottawa,
Phil
obviously.
Esposito and his brother.
His brother.
Tony had a pretty good career
Yeah.
too. It's not just Phil and his brother.
I'm not wrong, though. He is his brother.
It is.
And
yeah.
do you recall who was the celebrity front for the Senators?
Oh, no.
Paul Anka.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
I don't even know if you put money in it, but I remember that Paul Anka was the one that was going, we got to get a team in Ottawa.
Box office gold. Not only that, we got to get a team in Canada.
Yeah, Canada. Yeah. That
wow.
was that's true. I remember that very well because the picture in Sports Illustrated was like Phil giving the thumbs up to Tampa and Paul Anka giving the thumbs up to Ottawa.
Oh, man.
And as a teenager, I was like, these are old people.
Yeah. Imagine how people listening now feel.
Paul Anka and his brother.
Joe
photo
Anka.
there.
Steve Anka.
So obviously Ottawa was going back to the Senators, but maybe this is something only I care about, but a contest was set up to name the Tampa Bay franchise.
Okay.
So some of the finalists were the Oceanics and the Pelicans. The Tampa Bay Gators was another, but they went with the Lightning
Yes.
because I guess Tampa Bay is the Lightning capital of North America.
I did not know that, sir. Look at you
Yeah.
with your tidbits.
He said I guess, though.
So he doesn't.
He may not know that.
Zach's just making
Don't get
shit
too
up.
excited.
All right, let's go
facts.
deeper. Let's go deeper on this. So
shit.
apparently they're at a barbecue and there was some lightning coming in. And someone else suggested, I think the host's mother, who was in her 80s, said you should call the team the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Is that real?
That's apparently what I found in my
amazing.
shaky research.
And they are,
Amazing.
and the Lightning then became. There's a couple more since then, but there's like 8 teams in the major 4 leagues that have no S at the end of their name. Can we name those?
The 4 teams in the major 4.
In the 4 major leagues: NHL, MLB,
Yep.
NFL, and NBA.
Right.
I think there's 8.
So Minnesota
8,
Wild.
no S.
Minnesota
Yes.
Wild,
Yeah.
Tampa Bay Lightning,
Yeah.
Utah Jazz,
Yep.
Boston Red Sox, Chicago White Sox. That's 5. This is going to go on.
No. This
is
should
really
be
gonna
long.
be-
As long as there's lots of silences.
Yeah, that's
people
really the
love
good
that.
thing.
Yeah.
Lots of dead air while we
We
think
can
of
get
this.
there. We can get there.
Yeah, but
How long?
will it be interesting? I doubt it. I regret
Nobody
bringing
cares.
this up.
Nobody cares. But you don't have it in front of you either. So
No,
you
I
can't-
don't.
You can't stop this.
No, Orlando Magic.
Thank you.
Okay,
6,
that's
right?
Miami Heat.
Oh, there you go.
So it's all Florida teams, really.
Seven.
Florida's
One
to blame.
away.
Only 1 away. You know what's 8? Do you know that it's 8?
I don't, off the top of my head.
That's going great.
I think it's 8. I'm pretty sure
Well,
it is 8, but I
yes.
don't know what the 8th is. No.
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
I
I'm gonna
think
look it up.
during the show, someone can just yell it out. That'd be
You
great.
go ahead and say your next
Sure.
date. Or,
Well, let's go to basketball. 1986 Seattle Supersonics defeat the Houston Rockets, both S teams, 136-80 at the Summit in Houston. It sets a record for the most lopsided road win by a team in NBA history. The record was tied when Boston defeated the Bulls in Chicago 133-77 during the 2018-2019 season. I don't know that anyone really particularly cares about this, but that would be a real shitty game to be at.
that would be a bad game.
Even
to
if
be at.
you're excited about Seattle and you've traveled to Houston,
Yeah.
136-80. Those games are. And the funny thing is, and this is 86, so this is like the era where they didn't just go, it's always for threes, it's always for threes. So this
No,
was
that's
like
right, you're
a
right.
genuine, as I say, basketball
down.
game where they went for 2.
This just in off the news desk. There are 9 teams without, and the 2 we're missing. One is an NHL team,
Okay.
and the other is an NBA team.
Okay.
The NHL team moved from a city that rhymes with Stebek.
Okay. That must be the Avalanche.
Avalanche.
Yeah.
Oui.
Yeah.
And the other team moved from what you were just talking about, the Seattle.
Seattle, yes. Okay, well, they are the Pelicans. No, okay.
It ties in with Kippen's lightning
it's
story.
the Thunder.
It's the Thunder.
Yeah, the Thunder.
right.
Now, Matt and I, as you may not realize it or not, but Matt and I were fans of another basketball team called the Thunder, the Winnipeg Thunder, which was in the league where you couldn't be like over 6 whatever tall. Remember that short person basketball league?
Was that the actual rule?
Yeah. Yeah, the guy from, what was that basketball documentary, the 2 guys that were growing up like back in the 90s?
From Hoop Dreams?
Yeah, the kid from Hoop Dreams played on that team at one point. I think they only signed him because then you go, hey, it's a kid from Hoop Dreams.
Yeah.
But that was when Matt and I were in Winnipeg, constantly heard AC/DC's Thunderstruck. Constantly, because that was their theme song, of course.
Oh,
Out of nowhere. Thunder, got to be. And I think Winnipeg was excited about that team for about a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. See some Winnipeg basketball.
Sure.
I mean, I forgot about them, but yeah.
I wanted to bring up a second fact that no one gives a shit about, and I've done it.
You've done it without even meaning to. The feedback may tell us there's more.
Yeah, if you're a fan of that team or have a jersey, please send it to Mike's house,
Frank.
please. Yeah. Oh, Frank's getting that too. Let's go one more round.
Okay. I think this will be mine. In 1992, San Francisco 49ers wide receiver Jerry Rice sets an NFL record with his 101st career touchdown reception. Rice would retire much later with 197 receiving touchdowns, 219 including the playoffs. He is more than 40 TD receptions ahead of the second closest person, which is Randy Moss. And the active leader in the NFL right now is Devontae Adams, who has 80. Wow. Rice has 197. He has more career TD receptions than Michael Irvin, Sterling Sharp, and Julio Jones combined. That's what's
insane.
known as pretty good, especially when you consider the era he played in, which was not. A lot of guys are putting up big receiving numbers now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of guys going for 1,000 yards now.
Yeah,
catching a lot of passes. You know, a lot of quarterbacks throwing for 4,000 and 5,000 yards a season. That was not happening at the same level then. Just shows you how dominant he was at the time.
I mean, you might even have to put him in the conversation for best wide receiver ever, Mike.
You might have to think about it. I mean, you have to think about it. Didn't the NFL Network at one point, they named him the best player in
best
NFL
player of all
history.
time. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Period. Because he was.
Why not?
Because I think somebody at the time said he was the only guy at his position where there really wasn't. Now, this was a little while ago. There wasn't a debate about who it was, right? Quarterback, running back, linebacker, defensive end. You can make discussions. Rice statistically is so clearly ahead of everybody else. Anyway, that's.
I mean, if Tucker keeps kicking the way he is.
Yeah, true.
But I would say
he'd be the greatest.
Wouldn't that? This is an alternate history, but could you imagine if Jerry Rice has all these numbers, 219 including the playoffs, 197, yet he's also known that he dropped like the game-winning touchdown in a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like that would be like that one moment. It's like, oh my God, this guy was so good. He had that sort of. Not this quite this level, but like a Bill Buckner moment, which completely negates every single thing he did.
Yeah.
That was the night he was wide open.
And he dropped
the winning. It's
That's right.
Oh Lord,
it'd be interesting to see how that would. Yeah, because I think like that does change everyone's perception of you.
Yeah,
forever. Like Bill Buckner, no one remembers that.
He had batting.
Bill Buckner had batting titles and over 2,000 hits, and he was a really good player for a long time.
No one
remembers that.
No, it just takes that one thing.
Yeah.
So we've put that in the heads of every single athlete out there in the world now. How great you are. You better not fuck up once.
You are one drop away from it all not mattering. Yeah.
Matt, what do you got?
Let's go to December 6th, 1956 in the Melbourne Olympics.
Oh.
All right, you guys remember this one? So
not at all.
We're going to Blood in the Water, the famous Blood in the Water match.
Whoa.
So this is a water polo match between. This is one of the most remembered moments of these Olympics. It was the Soviet Union against the defending champions Hungary, and this was already like quite a contentious Olympics. So you had a lot of teams boycotting. So like Egypt, Iraq, Lebanon. Israel, France, they were all out. I think China boycotted as well. Netherlands, Spain, Switzerland. Does that sound like right? So a lot of teams boycotting.
I'm nodding.
Yeah.
And
can you name 7 more countries that don't end in S?
No one will know anyway.
But apparently it was a pretty violent match. There was blood in the water. People striking each other. A Soviet player may have hit a Hungarian player, and they had to call the game.
Whoa.
Yeah, blood in the water. You know what's interesting about this though is a lot of the teams.
Thank you for saying. No one asked though to continue.
You took our silence as a cue for to come in. What's interesting is
we're gonna try and find some oil here, but a lot of the teams were boycotting because of the Soviets' invasion of Hungary, but Hungary ended up going to the games.
Oh, okay, and got blood in the water.
Blood in the water.
Yeah.
1956.
I think we're just going to call December the 6th Blood in the Water Day now.
Wow.
Every factoid has to have.
Well, I'm going to go back to the NBA just to pick us up for our last one, because after Blood in the Water, in 2000, December 6, 2000, in a major upset of the Lakers, who would go on to win the title that year, Golden State's Antoine Jameson becomes just the 8th NBA player who ever to have back-to-back 50-point games. He scored 51, and so did LA's Kobe Bryant. Just the 3rd time in NBA history that 2 players scored 50 in the same game. Jameson had scored 51 3 nights earlier in a Warriors loss to Seattle. Antoine Jameson, someone you might have forgotten about.
Yeah.
perhaps. But man, when he was on,
Traded for Vince Carter, right?
That's right. Yeah, right after the draft, right in the draft.
The Raptors actually drafted Jameson, and then they traded with Golden State.
That's how they got Carter for Jameson. Now, and of course, that in 2000 with Golden State, I'm assuming he's just getting the ball constantly.
Yeah,
with that team.
Yeah, I mean, who else would have been on that?
No idea.
Yeah, no, me neither. But it couldn't have been the strong squad.
Now we want to eventually find out though when else. It says a third time in NBA history that two players scored 50 in the same game. What were the other two? That's interesting. What's in 2000? So could it be 50 points in a game? 50 points in a game.
By two player, like at the same. Yeah. I have no idea. I will tell you that some of Anton Jameson's key teammates that year would have included Larry Hughes, Danny Fortson, Bob Sura, and Mookie Blaylock.
Mookie Blaylock, I remember.
But he wasn't a scorer. Yeah, so they were just feeding him the ball. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, is Mookie Blaylock, who Pearl Jam named a 10 album after?
And
is that what he's most known for?
I think they were actually debating naming their band Mookie Blaylock too.
Yes.
Because they loved that player so much.
That's it. That's got 10.
Yeah.
I might have been calling him Antoine Jameson. So we'll go back and edit that out with someone else's voice.
Yeah. That's right. Kippen will do it.
You know the Heisman is often awarded around this time. Should we do a shout out to some
Why not?
notable Heisman?
We should. Yeah.
Starting December 6, 1961, Ernie Davis from Syracuse. He becomes the first black player to win the Heisman. The Elmira Express. Apparently, Jim Brown recruited him to go to his alma mater, Syracuse, and he ended up breaking a bunch of Jim Brown's records.
Wow,
it's a tragic story too. He was picked with the first overall pick in the '62 NFL draft by Cleveland, but he never played because he was diagnosed with leukemia and he died at age 23.
Wow, holy cow!
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I guess many people, especially young people out there, would not remember who that was.
Yeah, I don't think most people know, but he was a pretty amazing story.
Yeah, drafted first overall by Washington, I think, but quickly traded to Cleveland.
Oh, pardon me. Yeah, okay.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe the Jim Brown connection.
Yeah. Also, in Heisman-related news, in 1975, Ohio State running back Archie Griffin became the first and only college football player ever to win the Heisman Trophy more than once. He had won the previous year as a junior. Both years, he received more than half of the first-place votes. He was a first-round pick of the Bengals in the '76 NFL draft, but played just an unremarkable 7 seasons in the NFL, all with the Bengals, and he never even reached 700 rushing yards in a season. And he's the only guy to have won it twice, and was like a kind of a very pedestrian NFL player.
I'm listing only, and I'll say to people that I'm trying to figure out who else scored 52 players scored 50 points in one game.
You do it. You do that. I got another Heisman winner.
Okay, please.
1939. So this is the 5th Heisman winner. It went to Niall Kinnick, Iowa Hawkeyes, and he was the Corn Belt Comet. The
Corn Belt Comet. That's fantastic.
In 1939,
What position did he play?
well, he was a halfback.
I do hope that
And the punter and the equipment manager.
Yeah. So in 19, you got it, Sandy.
No, I was only going to say I hope that he wore like a belt made of corn. That's the only reason he was called that.
In 1939, he was on the field for an average of 57 minutes a game. Jesus. So he was a halfback and the main passer on the team. Threw for 638 yards, 11 touchdowns, rushed for around 374 yards, and made 11 of 17 drop kick conversions.
That's huge. 11 of 17.
Drop kicks.
Drop kicks. Doug Flutie style.
He was involved in 107 of Iowa's 130 points that season. And had 8 interceptions.
Jesus. Yeah.
Right.
So what were the 3 minutes he didn't play?
Yeah. I don't know. That's
Is that
a good
like
question.
is that because they were, like what did he do for those 3 minutes? Was that just punt returns and like
Coached.
Coaching?
That's right.
I haven't done anything. I haven't done it all yet.
Yeah.
I'm going to coach for 3 minutes.
Adjusting
He
the
was
belt.
squirting Gatorade in other players' mouths.
Adjust the belt. He had lost a few pounds in the game, so the guy came by with a little hole puncher just to get his belt a little tighter.
One more notch.
But they named the stadium after him. Kinnick Stadium is now where the Hawkeyes play. And at the end of the first quarter, they do this thing called the Kinnick Wave, or the Hawkeye Wave, and they turn and they wave to the Children's Hospital. Everyone in the stadium.
That's right. I didn't know that was okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's a great fact. I'm glad you brought that up. I like the Children's Hospital wave. I love the corn belt. That's all I wanted to say.
That's it. What else is?
Wait, are we doing notes in the middle of a?
Yeah, I loved it.
Have we gone over? Does anybody have another one they want to say before we do the one that ties us into our draft?
Well,
December 6th, I'm pretty good. I'm good.
I mean, unless you want to talk about Vinny Testaverde winning his.
I don't have that one, so you can do it, or we can just not talk about Vinny.
I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
We need to talk about some birthdays. Let's get into
Okay.
I think that's a good idea because born on December 6th, longtime Philadelphia Phillies shortstop manager Larry Bowa.
Mm-hmm.
Larry Bowa, born 1945, December 6th, 1945.
This kind of always seems like the grumpiest guy on the field.
It's funny when you see pictures of him being young because you always think he's old.
Yeah.
When he's playing, he's
Just
young,
one of those
pretty
guys.
quick,
Yeah.
very, very more defensive than hits. But I believe one year he might have gotten the batting title, or was close to the batting title one year. But
Yeah,
he was
a good player.
very good player and famously traded with Ryan Sandberg
That's right.
to the Cubs. And that's not a bad trade for them. Was it De Jesus? Is that his name? Ivan De Jesus for they got? 2 for 1 on that one.
Also born on this day in 1994, on December the 6th, in 1994, two-time NBA MVP and one-time NBA Finals MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo, also known as the Greek Freak.
Yes.
Little known fact, in 1994, born in Milwaukee.
That is a little known fact.
That's not true. No.
That's not true.
That's why he's called the Greek Freak.
That's a lie.
Because he was born in Greek town in Milwaukee.
Very small Greek town. It's right
Yeah.
by the Fonzie statue.
Yeah. Also on this day, go ahead, Mike.
Okay, I got one for you. I got All-Star Major League Baseball pitcher Kevin Appier in 1967. Finished third in AL Cy Young voting in 1993.
An underrated player.
Yeah.
He was on that Angels team that won the World Series.
He was, yeah, and he was a big part of it, actually.
He won at least 15 games for 5 different times.
Won 15 games 5 different times in an underrated career. We've got right here. That's very true.
Yeah.
Royals, Angels. Where else was he amazing? Those two. The
I
big
think
ones,
those were the two good spots he went to. After that, I don't know, but he was around a long time, and he's a sneakier, valuable guy than people kind of remember him for. He did win an ERA title one year. He won the ERA title in the American League in '93. He also pitched for the Royals a second time. He pitched for Oakland a bit, the Mets a bit, but really Kansas City and the Angels is where he sort of made his bones.
Yep. Does anyone want to talk about deaths? December 6th deaths. The entrances and the exits of life. Burleigh Grimes, 1985, Hall of Fame pitcher Burleigh Grimes. I think I'm saying it right, Burleigh.
I think it's Burley,
I'm going to say Burleigh then.
like Mark Burley.
Thank you. Hall of Fame pitcher Burleigh Grimes, like Mark Burleigh Grimes, the last legal spitball pitcher in MLB history, died at the age of 92. 270 career wins, 3.53 ERA for 7 different teams from 1916 to 1934. You know how he died?
No.
Choked on a spit.
Oof.
Yeah. He was spitting on a ball. No, it's not. This is all bullshit.
In Greektown.
I only make that joke because he was 92, Matt. 92 is pretty impressive.
Still pitching for the Angels at the
He
time.
was still
That's what's weird.
fucking pitching.
That guy.
Mid-game he
You talk
choked.
about a rubber arm.
Mid-game he choked, and he said, I don't want to come out. And he was dead, and they took him out. And he was really mad about it.
And he was also mad because you kept calling him Burleigh.
I'm sorry. I thought we were still talking about Kevin Appier.
Burleigh Grimes.
Burleigh.
Grimes.
We're supposed to sound like we know what we're talking about.
No,
Saying
God,
everybody's
no.
name wrong.
No, my God. And
Okay, now the last fact we have here is going to tie us into today's draft. So I'm going to give you this one. It's a thing nobody will give a shit about except his family. But on this day, December the 6th, in 2011, Carolina Hurricanes goalie Mike Murphy is charged with the loss in a 7-6 loss to Calgary despite not allowing a goal in the game. With the Hurricanes trailing 6-3, he replaced Cam Ward in the middle of the third period. He made 2 saves, and then he was pulled for an extra attacker. Calgary's Jerome McGinley scored an empty net goal to make the score 7-4, but Carolina then scored 2 goals in the final minute, meaning that Murphy was the one charged with the loss. He became the only goalie ever to lose a game before allowing his first NHL goal. 3 days later, he made 7 saves in a game in relief without allowing a goal versus Winnipeg, but he never played in the NHL ever again. He finished his career with a 0-1-0 record and a 0 goals against average and a 1,000 save percentage.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, only about 8 people on Earth knew that aren't members of Mike Murphy's family, but we're getting the word out there.
I think it's interesting. So we're talking about shorter, we'll say on the shorter side, NHL careers, specifically goalies, because we thought, well, let's do a draft. The 3 of us do a draft where we have to each select 3 goalies who we think were pretty damn good for a short amount of time or only played 250 games or less.
Yeah.
So the parameters of this draft were you'd pick 3 goalies who played 250 games or less.
In the NHL.
Thank you. The NHL. That is a clarification.
Yeah.
Not the OHL, the KHL, nowhere else. They have to have played in the NHL 250 games or less. That is the parameters for this goalie draft we're about to do. It's challenging, but there are those guys out there. So we are going to now do this draft. Mike's going to start. And we are going to tell you who these guys are and maybe give a slight justification as why we thought we'd pick this particular goalie. So, Mike, why don't you kick it off? This is the Burley Grimes Memorial
Goalie draft.
Goalie draft.
Before we do the draft, I should. Our sponsor for the draft this week is the good people at Oldsmobile.
Thank you.
Makers of the Cutlass Supreme. And right now, at your local Pontiac Oldsmobile dealer, if you purchase any 4-door sedan, you'll get a free upgrade only to This Day in Sports listeners. During the month of December, our listeners who buy a Cutlass, Regency, or Delta 88 model will receive a complimentary cassette deck with auto reverse, as well as a free backseat ashtray, free of charge. So go see your local Oldsmobile dealers for details and tell them Frank sent you.
That's been a great partner of ours, the Oldsmobile people. They're good people.
Great
they're good folks.
They're so busy. They're tough to get on the phone, but once you get them,
very hard.
They're great. Yeah.
But once we get them, you're right. They do set us up, and we've all gotten cars for the week from Oldsmobile.
That's
which
right.
is very fine.
Yeah.
Very expensive on gas. Okay,
and it's leaded gas, which is difficult to get.
very.
I think you used to get a cassette when you bought a new Oldsmobile.
Like an actual
They curated it. They made a tape.
Really?
Playlist?
Yeah, playlist.
What kind of songs would you expect to hear on that playlist?
Coney Hatch.
Thank you. Coney Hatch would definitely be on there.
Corey Hart and Coney Hatch.
Matt, what was the
Honeymoon
era on
Suite?
there? What era is that? Honeymoon Suite actually might have been on there. Was it like an oldies? Or
I'm
was
thinking,
it like
oldies, but
Okay.
it was like probably in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
And,
You get yourself a Cutlass. You get
Yeah.
yourself a 8-track or a
No, a cassette.
A cassette.
And I think they'd want to cast, a wide net, so some hits.
Sure.
Yeah. Now, Matt, when we were living in Winnipeg, Mike, sorry to take you out of this for a second, but you might bounce back.
That's right. I got to check on
when we had that Winnipeg Jets music. There was like songs, hits from Winnipeg bands, but with new lyrics. Yeah. Was it a free giveaway? Or did you have to purchase that CD or tape?
I don't know, but it's on YouTube.
You can definitely check it out.
Yeah.
Numanen, saw you skating across the blue line.
Numanen.
Saw you skating across the blue line. Yeah.
That was actually a song?
Yeah.
They took Teppo Numanen song?
Yeah, they would take I think that's Streetheart. They would take that song that was a famous Winnipeg song and they would change it to reflect famous Jets
players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you say famous,
I mean in Winnipeg.
famous in Winnipeg.
Well, no, I know. But I will also add that Toronto had I think two or three songs that when they were in the playoffs. That was the year like 94 or 93, whatever year. Frank will tell me the year the Leafs were in the semifinals and then played the Kings and lost. 93, right? No, it's 93 because that's the year the Habs won the cup against the Kings. You could get it was a tape you could get at Esso. This is why I think at the gas station you get a tape at Esso, and one side was Glenn Anderson helping to sing one of these songs, and the song was called "The Leafs Are the Best."
What was it about?
It was like this: "The Leafs are the best, better than all the rest. North, south, east, and west. The Leafs are the best."
Wow. Where did they come up with it, eh?
and I will dare our listeners to flip it over.
Oh, Frank is, I don't know if you folks are getting this at home, but Frank's actually playing a clip of it right now. Don't say we won't go. And that's Glenn Anderson right there.
I believe so.
Wow. 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 Also, little known fact on that, Pat Burns playing the French horn.
Thank you.
On that song.
Thank you. And I believe when you turned it over, there was another song was the exact same tune, just different lyrics.
Okay, Sandy, I found the album. It's called Hockey Rock Winnipeg Style.
Thank you.
Featuring Manitoba artists Randy Bachman, Joey Gregorish, Colin James, Streetheart, Harlequin. My goodness.
Wow.
Quite the star-studded lineup there.
Big Manitoba names there.
So we will definitely put a link
Yeah.
up on in our notes.
Yeah.
We'll put a link on the YouTube.
Nobody's going to want to miss
You're
that.
going to want to jump on and listen to those two great songs. Now, we're going to get into this draft. Okay, once again, since it's been 7 years since we set this up,
So this
Oldsmobile still the sponsor.
Oldsmobile store.
They may be out of business by the time we get to this.
Don't bite your tongue. Everybody loves an Olds. Okay, so the criteria is we're going to pick NHL goalies who had really good careers but did not play any more than 250 career games in the NHL.
There we
so
go.
a relatively small, short career.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to pick first because I'm probably the least knowledgeable hockey guy of the three of us. And my first pick is going to be, and I'm not even sure I'm saying his name right, is Bob Froese,
Woo, okay.
who is a St. Catharines, Ontario native, which is my hometown, which is part of the reason I'm leaning this way. However, Bob was a really good goalie. He only played 242 games in his career. He was an all-star in 85 and 86 with Philadelphia. And 85-86, he went 31-10 with a 2.55 goals against and a 909 save percentage. That's in the mid-80s when everybody was scoring a ton of goals. He did not win the Vezina that year, but he should have. Van Beesbroek won it, and Van Beesbroek had lesser stats all the way across the board. Like in all of those categories I just mentioned. He should have won the Vezina that year, but he ended up only playing 242 career games. He had a 128-72 record career. Really good goalie that's kind of been forgotten, and had one unbelievable year. And he's from my hometown.
Yeah. Bob Froese. We're
Bob
thinking
Froese.
we're thinking that's how you say his name.
RFOESE.
Yes, and
My apologies to Bob if I said it wrong.
well, he's probably listening.
Yeah, undoubtedly.
Matt, who you got?
Well, I'll go take Roman Czechmanek.
Yep, Roman
Yeah.
Czechmanek. That
So
would've
he
been my
played
first pick.
212 games. He had a 2.08 goals against average and a save percentage of .919. He played 4 seasons and was an all-star for 3 of them.
Yeah.
And in 2000, 2001, he was second in Vezina voting. He lost to Hasek.
Yep.
But that same year, he was 4th in the Hart Trophy
Yeah.
voting. He was behind only Sakic, who won, Lemieux, and Jagger. So that's pretty incredible.
That's pretty good.
That's absolutely great.
He also liked to make skull saves using his head.
And I believe the reason he got traded was he wasn't very popular with he threw his teammates under the bus once or twice, sort of famously, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. Very
Unbelievable 4 years, though. Yeah.
Yeah, he was part of those. I think that's probably one of Bobby Clark's headaches was him and the way he went.
Right. The Flyers and goalies will be a recurring theme throughout this. We already have 2 Flyers goalies.
So that would have been. I think Czechmanek might have been my first pick. Froese was not on my list. Sorry, Mike.
No, that's fine.
But I'm going to go with a goalie because you got to be a Flyer, and this is a guy I loved because I loved him as a kid when you got a hockey card and it was a goalie. That was more valuable in your mind than anybody else. And this was one of those guys, Pete Peeters.
Ah, yes.
Ooh.
Pete Peeters was a favorite of mine when I was a kid. He did win the Vezina with the Bruins, but he played around. Like he was a Philly, started off the Flyers, so there we go, check that box. Mm-hmm. He was 3rd in Rookie of the Year for the Calder in 79-80. Won the Vezina in 82-83 when he won 40 games.
Wow.
40 wins, 12 losses. Like, that was a huge record. His goals against was 2.37. Led the league in goals against. Led the league in 8 shutouts. The guy was a really great goalie, but I was actually surprised he only played 179 games because
that is surprising.
it felt like he was around forever.
Pete Peeters?
Yep.
Okay.
Turns out he has 489 games if you keep on going.
Yeah. So
what a great goalie.
It was a great pick. I would have picked him first, maybe two, but he did play 489 games.
So listen,
the people at Oldsmobile are going to be mad, saying, don't fuck around.
His wins were just under. He had 246 wins.
I tried to sneak him in there. It didn't work out.
I was doing the math as you were talking. I was like, Pete Peeters played for like 4 or 5 different teams.
Yeah. I have completely misread this draft.
Anyway. Yeah.
I will just let it go. But you know what? I'm just gonna pay tribute to different guys as it comes around to me.
Can I give you a pick?
No.
All right.
I don't.
We're gonna have
a charity pick?
We're gonna have these picks analyzed later. You're clearly gonna finish third now. You're not gonna have. Okay, so
no, I'll pick somebody else.
Okay.
That's hilarious.
That was just to distract people.
That was the smoke screen.
Yep.
That was a smoke screen. Just to go like, did you want to write in? Don't write in. We figured it out. What the hell? It's got to be a flyer. Let's go with Pelle Lindbergh.
Yeah. There you go.
Tragically, obviously died in a car crash in, of all places, New Jersey, Frank's stomping grounds.
Yep.
And but that one shining season where he won the Vezina, 84-85, 40 wins. See, I set up Pete Peeters, 40 wins. Actually, that's interesting because it's very similar. He had a massive season, obviously, that year, and then the following year, mid-season, dies in a car crash. Unbelievable.
Terrible.
And what he could have been, what would have happened, but he qualifies with 157
he
games
sure does.
played.
Yeah, he does.
And so, Pete Peeters, go fuck yourself. It's Pelle Lindbergh time.
I think, didn't Lindbergh have like one shirt he would wear every game? Like he'd wear the same shirt under his
I didn't know that. No.
No,
Maybe that was Pete Peeters.
Oh, so,
everything's
and
gonna
he would
come
also
back
drink like a specific Swedish soda, and he had some.
It all sounds right.
Another car accident death, right? Lindbergh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the first one?
Yeah. Well, there's been no other car crashes.
You talking about Tim Horton or?
Frank's
so
having a
far.
stroke.
Frank is so far away.
He's on tape delay.
We were talking about Heatley earlier.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
no,
Danny
that was
Heatley.
off the record.
Well,
Yeah.
Yep.
Off the. Yeah. Okay. Let's keep this moving.
Clearly, I'm scrambling over here.
I'm going to take Pete Peeters as my second goalie.
Don't do it.
Because
Don't do it.
Wait, what?
Oh, man.
No.
Now I've gotten into your heads.
Yeah.
See, that's how you
All
do
over
it,
the place.
folks.
I'm all over.
My second goalie, because I like picking guys with the name Mario, I will take Mario Lessard, who won. He led the NHL with 35 wins for the Kings in 1980-81. He was an NHL All-Star that year. He was the top 10 in goals against for 4 straight years, 78-82, and in the top 10 in games played. He was the goalie for LA in the Miracle on Manchester. You know that playoff game against Edmonton where they came back from a 5-0, trailing Gretzky's Oilers 5-0 in a playoff game. They came back, scored 5 third-period goals, and won the game in overtime. And they beat the Oilers out of the playoffs that year. But he only played 240 career games. So
just squeaked in there.
yeah,
10
I'm
under.
gonna pick him just for that run with the Kings there, that one magical year.
It's a good pick. Obviously, my research has gone awry. So, like, hey, man,
Take Pete Peeters again.
Way to go! Oh, fuck, wait till I take Mike Liut.
My third pick is going to be Patrick Waugh. Is that going to be okay? He didn't play more than 250.
I tell you what, I'm gonna bounce back. So this guy is.
It's not you.
No, it's not.
No, but I mean, but just generally. What's this?
Sandy is destroying the draft.
Okay, well, this is great.
Yeah, it's going really
First
well.
job. All right, I'm gonna pick. 172 games played, 2.58 goals against average. You got a save percentage of .898 and 16 shutouts. Nicknamed the Mask, Ace, and Net Detective, it's Jim Carrey.
I thought about Jim Carrey. Yeah, yep.
I mean,
Didn't
his first 2 seasons were the best. So
Yeah.
in 94-95, he was second in Calder and third in Vezina. And 95-96, he won the Vezina.
Yeah, he shouldn't have won it that year, but he did.
Oh, okay, well.
Nevertheless, like like the vote. No, the vote is like when you look at.
Alrighty then.
Well, Pelle Lindbergh shouldn't have crashed his car.
No, it's a vote, and the vote.
Matt,
was,
come back. Matt, come back. Sit down.
The vote that year was bad. He shouldn't have won it, but he still was like a great goalie for that year. No quote. But Chris Osgood that year. The reason I didn't pick him, Chris Osgood that year with Detroit, 39-6. With a .911 save percentage and a .217 goals against. That's why Jim Carrey shouldn't have won it. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, he proved that he didn't have any longevity. That's for sure. Guys, we're back on track. We are looking at the rules, and
Curtis
we're feeling
Joseph.
pretty good about this. Here we go. All right, Al Jensen. Al Jensen, okay? The reason I love this guy is he falls within the rules of 250 games or less, but also I love that he played for the Hamilton Finn Cups.
Ooh.
What a great name. And then they became the St. Catherine's Finn Cups, Michael.
Oh,
Yep, unbelievable.
wow.
The Finn Cups. But let me tell you about his NHL career, friends.
Please.
He was a Vezina runner-up while he was third in Vezina voting once. He was ninth one year, which is not that much. But when he played for the Capitals he played for the Capitals in the 80s. So this is 82-83, 22 wins, 12 losses, 83-84, 25 wins, 13 losses, 85-86, 28 wins, 9 losses. Great percent. Led the leading shutouts in 83-84.
Yeah.
A guy I had forgotten all about.
Me too.
Al Jensen, formerly of the Hamilton and St. Catherine Finn Cups. Then he played for the Capitals and then closed out. He was actually drafted by the Red Wings, played for the Capitals a lot, and closed out his career with the Kings. That is my, within the parameters of the rules, pick.
That one
Al
counts.
Jensen.
All right, very good. And now it's my last pick, so I'm going to take
Pete Peeters. Way to go, man. Great choice.
my pick is Martin Brodeur.
Oh, excellent choice. Wish
I will
I'd seen
take
that.
Steve Shields.
Okay.
Steve Shields played 246 career games, so he's just under the wire. He has an 80 and 104 record, but I'm picking him because, well, first of all, he has a career 267 goals against. Career, that's pretty good. And in 96-97 for Buffalo, he started 10 games in the playoffs. He had a .922 save percentage for the Sabres, but they scored only 13 goals in 5 games in a series against Philly, and they lost. But he had those numbers against that Philly Legion of Doom team that year, which had Howard Chuck, Brindamore, Coffey, Lindros, Leclerc, Renberg, Desjardins, Zubris. That was an unbelievable Philly team.
Yeah.
And he pretty much shut them down, except Buffalo couldn't score for him. And I remember that he was a journeyman, played for like 5 different teams, but he's my third string goalie, but he's my guy.
It's a good choice. I forgot all about him. But as soon as you said his name, I remembered him.
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to need a ruling on my third goalie here.
Is it Pete Peeters?
Played 190 games in the NHL, but he also played in the NHA. George Vezina.
Yeah, I thought about Vezina. I didn't think he fell in the rules, but I'm the
yeah,
wrong
you know
guy
what?
to ask.
You know what? I'm gonna. Let's go modern. Let's go modern era then. So
nobody's gonna freak out. There's no stakes.
No, that's fine. So no Normie Smith. No, we'll skip those guys.
Yeah, definitely no Normie Smith.
Are you sure?
That guy.
Hold on. I will go back and say for Vezina.
Yeah,
you're saying that he played NHA.
I believe he played in the
a precursor to the NHL.
Because I still have him at 190 games in the NHL.
Yeah.
So that's under 250.
Yeah, but I think in the spirit of it, it's not like he had a short career.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it was. Yes, it was.
I mean, he never won. He never won the Vezina.
That's right.
Well, yeah, but he did.
That's a solid point.
Unfortunately, he did pass away from tuberculosis.
It
was
as they did back then.
And then we have to eliminate people who had TB. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
All right, you know what? I'm gonna switch the pick. I'm gonna go modern, and I'm gonna go.
Kippin's playing head games now too.
Oh yeah, he knew the rules all the time.
I'm gonna go with Pokey Reddick.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe
Very
not
popular.
the greatest stats. Well, I mean, he was impressive. He played 132 games, had a goals against average career of 3.71 and a save percentage of 873. In 86-87 with Winnipeg, he was 4th in Vezina voting and 5th in Calder voting. But was really interesting is he was half of the goaltending duo in Winnipeg. Do you remember, Sandy?
Was he with Essena? Senza?
Daniel Bertillon.
Oh,
so it was
okay.
Pokey and the Bandit.
Pokey and the Bandit, yes.
And that year they both finished in the Vezina voting. I think 4th and 8th, the 2 goalies.
Wow.
Would you
That's
like me to
pick?
Would you like me to predict the feedback for this second episode of our podcast? Too much Winnipeg.
I was St. Catherine's. Well, that's a great pick. I had forgotten about Pokey and the Bandit. Matt, let me take you back to a simpler time. This gentleman won the Vezina in 1970-71. This is Gilles Villemure. He won the Vezina in 70-71. He qualifies, just in case we're checking, because I'm pretty shaky now, 205 games played in the NHL. He had a season where, and when he won the Vezina, he had 22 wins, 8 losses. He had a 2.3 goals against. The following season, 24 wins, 7 losses, 2.09 goals against, 20 and 12, 22 and 14. He had some amazing years. He had 4 out of those 5 great years.
Yeah.
3rd in the Calder, 10th in the Hart, 1st in the Vezina. That big year, 70-71, playing with the Rangers, closed out his career out of there. But I'll tell you this, when he was on, Gilles was on.
Yeah. Now that's a trivia question. I bet you almost nobody would be able to guess who won the 1971 Vezina Trophy.
No,
I don't know if I've ever even heard that guy's name before.
Very challenging.
Well,
you'd be guessing Tony Esposito and
totally.
guys like that.
Or his brother. So another piece of trivia for you. Pokey Reddick apparently holds the National Hockey League record for most games played by a goaltender without recording a shutout. He played 132 NHL games without a single shutout.
And you got him.
And you have him. Yeah.
Too much Winnipeg.
So that is the notes
title
from the
of
crowd.
this.
Now here's the exciting thing, because this has been a kind of a weird draft. We've got got weird.
It's esoteric. Yeah.
Mostly my fault. We'll be honest. Let's
almost
be honest.
entirely, yeah.
It's almost entirely my fault. But we have this challenging parameters. We are now going to go and get judged. Well, here we are. We have just finished our draft. Our 3 goalies criteria, of course, cannot have played more than 250 games in the NHL, who we feel were a bright light, and they make a short amount of time for various reasons. We felt like they could have done more, had a lot of experience and or less experience, but more success in a brief amount of time. And we are so lucky because we always want to be judged on this day in sports. We crave judgment. And so we have got a fantastic guest here. This gentleman was drafted by Winnipeg in the 9th round, the 1991 NHL entry draft. He played goal with the Kingston Raiders, became the Kingston Frontenacs. Before that, they were Kingston Canadians, if I'm tracking correctly. He's also the father of Cutter Gauthier, because he is NHL goalie Sean Gauthier. I almost said Shane. Sean Gauthier. What an awesome intro, and then suddenly said the name wrong.
I appreciate that.
That's the kind of class we have on this show, Sean, where we I always think of the name the way you spell Sean, because I had a friend when I was a kid who always got called Scene. Did you ever have that experience as a kid? Scene.
It's funny you say that, because my first I was drafted, like you said, I was drafted by the Winnipeg Jets, and they were fortunate. They had 2 farm systems. One was in Moncton, New Brunswick, in the American Hockey League, and then they had Fort Wayne in the International League. So not traveling quite a bit in the States when I was younger, I got my first chance to be in Fort Wayne, and starting for the Comets, they're ionic, orange and black, and they said, "You're starting goaltender, Scene Gauthier." I'm going,
there you go, blew them both. So I only
Gauthier. Where'd you get that from? I thought, and I looked down the blue line, I was looking, is this a new Russian player? Like, what's going on? That kind of thing. But that's how it started off.
Sean, we're glad you're here. I'm glad I only fumbled a little, not that badly. And now your experience in the Matt is judging me, which, Matt, we only have one judge for this section.
That's true. That's fun.
You did play for the San Jose Sharks, 98-99, made one appearance, 2 shots, saved them both. You retire with a 1,000% save, really. I mean, you made all your saves, 2 for 2, and you decided that was it.
That was it. I dropped the mic and I left, and I said, I ended out on a good note. You know what I mean? I was waiting for my intro into the Hall of Fame, but still waiting.
Was it Chicago you played?
I played against Chicago, and ironically, my 2 shots were against, Dougie Gilmore and Probert on a 2-on-1.
Wow.
And then my other one was against, Gilmore again, taking another shot. So it was like, because we had Daryl Sutter, right?
Yeah.
And he's a pretty calm guy, right? And so he actually, and it was funny because, we'll talk about, the draft that you guys, I replaced one of the individuals that you guys had drafted.
Okay, that's going to be great.
Okay.
Well, I think what's key here is that we always like to praise those legendary guys who are known for playing for those teams, and legendary Blackhawk Doug Gilmore.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Not Maple Leaf, Not anything else.
No,
Just
not Calgary,
not Calgary.
Steelers,
Legendary Blackhawk.
Blackhawk.
Just like Bobby Orr, legendary Blackhawk.
Yes.
So we want to jump in right away to this draft because we want to hear how you feel about it. So I thought we would start off with, we'll just kind of do it by teams, and we thought this would be maybe the right process. Mike's team. We're going to do Mike's team first. What do you say? Mike's team, just to throw
Sure,
it.
I had first pick. That seems fair.
Okay, let's go with Mike's. What do you think of Mike's three guys there, Sean?
Well, I mean, what can I say? Like, I mean, I have them written down. So Mike, you start off with Bob Froese. Is that what it was?
That's right. Yeah.
You know, I liked him. You know what? A lot of the guys, okay, but for 200, you know, back up, because most guys obviously at 250 games or less, which is the criteria, were backup guys, right? And so I thought that, you know, Bob had a great career in Philly and New York, and for you to stay in an organization for more than 3-4 years, you're doing your job. But those guys were kind of like, you know, good guys in the dressing room. Right. But he had the one big year in 85, 86. And like, I mean, you win 30 games in the National Hockey League. Yeah, you're doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, that's what,
you know, so, but a lot of the guys back that you guys, all three of you guys, it was like small man game. Like they're all 5'9", 5'10", 5'7", right? Except for one of them that you guys drafted. But he was okay. Like you know, I mean, they're all journeymans, right?
Yeah.
You know, if you play 250 games, you're doing well. So not much style, just kind of like stand up, poke check, you know, hopefully it hits you type of guy.
That's right.
And that's a good analysis of him. And now you've got Mario Lessard. Am I saying it right? Mario Lessard. I'm putting like a lot of like flavor on that. Maybe.
Yeah, I think that is how you say it. That's how I keep it.
Yeah, again, we're talking about back in the day. I don't know much about him, only due to the fact that it was, I don't want to say way before my time, you know what I mean? But I mean, he didn't hurt you. He didn't help you. Like he was there, okay, for more. Now we talk about it, more scheduled games. You're going on the West Coast. You're going to play, you can play 50-50 on the road. Great. Throw Mario in there. Guys came back after a bender, you know, let him face it. You know, but I mean, he played 50-50 hockey. Like, I mean, he had like 92 wins, 97 losses. Yeah. And I mean, but yeah, I think it was pretty good. You know, like
I think what put him on my team too. I don't know if I said this when we picked, but he also is one of the few goalies who can say he beat Gretzky's Oilers in a playoff series.
And that is a feat in itself, right? Because I mean, that was legitimately.
Yeah.
Oh, Mike, you're right. Because back then, I mean, you didn't know it, right? But everybody on that team's a Hall of Famer. Like, going out at night, like, how you supposed to say, you know, like, I mean, back then, and even now, because the game's changed, but back then it was just managing personalities, right? Like, how you supposed to tell Messier, Coffee, Yuri, Gretzky that no, you're not going out, you know what I mean? Or, you know, do whatever you want to do, you know what I mean? But, and then again, you got Andy Moog, small man, but played a lot of games for Boston and Dallas, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think, Mike, okay, you're on track so far. So we're good.
Oh, pretty good, Mike. Steve Shields. And I know
I've got to sell it.
I think, Sean, you have a connection to Steve Shields in some way. You know who that is. And
it's funny because with Steve, he's a year younger than I am, and I'm from Sudbury. He's from North Bay. I was the first goalie drafted in the Ontario Hockey League back then, and I didn't know much about college because you're a Canadian kid, and, you know, it doesn't happen back then. And then he ended up going to Michigan, and through this whole term, he ended up played 4 years, had the big time record at Michigan, gets drafted by, you know, Buffalo, does a stint there, and he becomes that journeyman all over the place. So he was the actual goalie that Daryl had enough of, you know what I mean? Because Daryl wasn't, you know, suave back then. It was more cut and throat.
Yeah.
And I got a great story about Daryl. Anyways, so what happened was that it was pretty funny, but nonetheless, he was just, you know, ticked off at, you know, Shieldsy in San Jose, and it was like, you know, whatever, a couple minutes left in the game, and I worked my tail off. I always had a, you know, reputation. I always worked hard, and, you know, good guy. And in doing so, he said, the hell with it, take him out. And he pulled him out, and he didn't, like, Daryl never talked to anybody. Like, You only talk to his 2 or 3 guys. Now the game's changed, right? But he was the goalie that I replaced against Chicago and got the chance to play. And that was kind of like history. So, but it's funny because now, Shilsey ended up playing, again, all over the place. And he ended up with the University of Michigan, back where he started, to become the goalie coach.
Right.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Now, Sean, you won't tell us this Daryl Sutter story, or you will tell it now because you've stopped talking with Steve Shields.
Okay.
I'm not sure why there was a stoppage on that story.
Yeah. So this is like, it was funny because we're playing against Colorado. Colorado hadn't had a chance, wasn't winning. The starting lineup, guys, I kid you not. The starting lineup was Joe Sakic, Forsberg, Kaminsky, Ozelinch, and Rob Blake, and Patrick Roy net. Like, really? Seriously.
That's
Like, I can't make that up, right?
Yeah.
So he goes out and Nabokov is there, can't speak a lick of English. And he goes out and says, hey, you're going to go in halfway through the game because it's already 5-0. You know what I mean? So I said, okay. I got 1 foot over the bench, 1 foot over the boards, and the man loses his marbles. There's a picture in ESPN of I'm right beside the trainer and Sutter is yelling at me so bad that you can see the spit. And there's 4 people behind the glass, like what is going on? But I'm telling him that I'm supposed, like, he told me to go on. And I'm waiting and waiting to go on. And he goes, and he named every word in the book, every name in the book to tell me, like, I'll tell you when to go on, when not to go on. Beep, 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 beep. Period's over, and I'm like, I'm making, backup money. I'm tapping guys in the butt saying, good shift, good shift. And then the end of the, he's at the bench, goes, now you can go on the ice. It's like, really? Like, really? Like, I mean, and it's not me. I didn't even stop anything. I didn't even get the chance to play, right?
Yeah.
But he was that guy that liked the controversy. He liked, okay, guys that had grit, you know what I mean, and everything else. And I didn't even get a chance to show the grit, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, it was a pretty ionic moment because I'm thinking, really, I'm going to get yelled and screamed at to do this, to do that, not, but yeah, I mean, in San Jose's organization at the time, there was Shields, there was Vernon, Kiprasov, Hedberg, Nabokov, and myself.
Oh my God.
I mean,
God.
Really? And we were unbelievable.
That's
Like,
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous.
So, but yeah.
Well, I want to segue because I want to go to absolutely ridiculous. Let's go to Matt's team. What do you think of Matt there? Start with Robin.
You know what? I think he's a sleeper. That's
what he likes. That's his favorite thing.
That's his nickname.
Yeah, the sleeper, the underdog.
That he was that guy that ended up going out and came over to Europe because there was always that negative connotation of these guys just came over and took the money and ran type of deal. But with him, he it's hard to play. And ironically, my son's playing for that organization. It's hard to play for Broadway bullies. Like, you have to be that guy. Like, they're hardcore fans. But I mean, he 6'3", big man game, played well. I mean, he had great numbers, 110 wins, 64 losses. And by that was a changing over the era of how the game was being played. 2 goals against, 920 save percentage. I like him. I would have taken him. Yeah, I mean, so all day long. So that was good for you, Matt.
I think Chechmanek is. I was actually surprised Mike didn't take Chechmanek first. I thought he was a good pick.
I did pick Bob Froese first because he's from my hometown.
There it is.
I'm not going to lie. That was part of my criteria.
But you know what, guys? The thing is that for those type of numbers, why did he not play longer?
There was some issues with him. I want to say there was some issues with him, and I'm trying to think. that must have been Bobby Clark was GM.
Yeah,
and
I think
everything was out. And I'm from Flin Flon, Manitoba. I am not. I know, and so I'm influenced a little bit. But I love Bobby Clark. But there was a lot of trouble when he was the GM of Philly. We all know.
From Flin Flon. Wow. See, Jamie Leach was my roommate.
Oh yeah.
So I know Leach. I knew Leachy really well.
Perfect. Some Bombers connections there. What do you think? We got Jim Carrey. We want to get into Jim Carrey.
Guys, where do you want me to start? This guy, okay, everything he touched, he stopped. He had the unbelievable minor league team of all times with Portland, in Portland, Maine, with Barry Trotz. And Trotz hadn't, Trotz is now an Ionic coach in National Hockey League, and he was just starting to break through. And they had an all-time breaking records, and they got the chance. And again, when I played, it wasn't a lot of college guys, right? So a big name out of college was Eddie Belfour, and everyone thought he played maybe junior hockey, right? And then you end up having Mike Richter. Oh, and then you end up having, Carey, all happened to be from University of Wisconsin. So they were pumping goalies, right, left, and center.
Yeah.
So Carey was unbelievable, but that was like Washington had Oleg Kozig and Brian Defoe. Like they had a good tandem. There was no way. And Ole was the most intense individual that you'd ever see. He was extremely intimidating, 6'4". If you didn't shoot the pucks at his knees, he'd legitimately, I kid you not, pick up the net and throw it. Like he was that strong. So when someone came in like Jim Carey come in and played the way he did, it humbled a lot of people. But I mean, that was the classic Hollywood story, rise up real quick and then crash and burn. Because after that year, it never worked. Like anything he touched, he went from Toronto, he ended up going to, other teams, that it just struggled for him. And that's a classic. Your top 5 big NHL teams paying for it and having the sophomore jinx.
Yeah, that was definitely it. He fizzled out in Boston. That's where he went out from Washington to Boston. That's a big fizzle out. It was always so surprising, but yet won the Vezina that one year, which is kind of the core of a lot of the draft picks we were making in this of the 9 was trying to pick guys who won a Vezina and maybe you never even heard of or never heard from again.
Right. And you don't even hear about them now.
No.
Like they're usually you hook up a Instagram or a LinkedIn or anything else. A lot of guys kind of fizzled, and he was one of them. It's unfortunate because
you get the nicknames. I hear people talking about the Mask and Net Detective.
That that was just kind of like where the stars all aligned. Like that was the movie came in. Everything else they ran with it. And again, a lot of this, and it's more and more now that you guys see it, is all social media. It's driven. What's the big movie? What's the big this? We didn't have that. I mean, like you can't do anything on social media without being tagged, right?
And now, Sean, because Matt mentioned nicknames and you were with the Jets and Matt's a Jets fan, let's go to Pokey Reddick.
Guys, this guy I played with him. Okay. And the reason why his name was Pokey was because when, he had, his real name is Eldon. All right. And because he was always poking at his diaper when he was a kid. And mom started calling him Pokey and everything else. But this guy, with him, I would put him in the same boat as Trevor Kidd and Pokey as being eccentric.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Pokey would take off all of his equipment between periods, go in, and then you guys know the movie Coming to America. Yeah. All right. He would then go look himself in the mirror, kind of fling his hair, kind of look, go, cool, and then put his equipment back on. Every period. I'm not kidding you. You know what I mean? And you got to remember, there was him, Pokey Reddick, and Daniel Berthiaume.
Yeah.
Pokey and the Bandit, right? So they both went to Winnipeg, played in Winnipeg. I think, Daniel Berthiaume played in LA, I think Pokey did as well. But, the thing is that it was, again, the game changed over and guys were starting to get bigger and stronger, and those guys were more vulnerable. And he got exposed. And then, I mean, he didn't play really his last 2 or 3 years. But I mean, he was a great minor league goalie.
That's where Matt was excited about. Very excited about getting Pokey, Matt?
Well, but I think he did win a cup with Edmonton that year when Fuhr got hurt, and then he was.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you're right with that. Because they had a few, right? They, ended up going out and having, they had Andy Moog, they had Ranford, they had a
he was behind Ranford, I think in the 89-90 season.
Yeah,
their last cup.
Yeah.
Now this is going to my team. I always like to bring the party down. So we're starting off with Pelle Lindbergh on my team.
You know what? It's so there's a little bit of sentiment for that. Mm-hmm. So Cutter was born in Sweden. All right. I played my last 5 years over in Sweden. So there's a little connection with that and everything else. He was that fallen legend that he never got to be what he could have been.
Yeah.
And I think the actual incident of him, running into a wall at whatever miles per hour and actually killing himself with his Porsche is like what could have been him. You know what I mean? And he had that real great mask and everything else. And again, playing for a team, like we all know, okay, to be chance to play, I got a chance to play for my 3 minutes, but to play for the National Hockey League in any organizations is an honor, right? But to play for some of these organizations that have been around, obviously the big six, or original six, but Philly being there, it would have been great to see what he could have been.
That's exactly it.
And he brought that European style over, right? Like, and they didn't have that back then, because they had Kevin, Reggie Lemlin, and they had all these other goalies that, could have, been better, but, they always missed the mark.
They did. But I can only imagine being in Sweden, that he's just an absolute legend there especially the goalies in Sweden. Yeah.
Well, Sweden ended up going out and revolutionized, goaltending from a standpoint globally, because every youth hockey team in Sweden has a goalie coach. So it's an abundance. So for the longest time, you end up having, all French Canadian goalies, and everybody did the butterfly. Right. And it's like, oh no, you got to stand up. Okay. You're on your knees or getting scored on. Then it got changed over with Felix Potvin and Patrick Roy and now Thibault and Jimmy Waite and all those guys. And then you ended up going to North Americans, and then it switched over to Europe. And then you had a ton of Swedes. And then all it was now, flushed with, Finnish goalies. And then now it's everybody has to be 6'6" to play.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the game's changed on that too. And it's all about analytics and they're saying, shots and so on and so forth. But for a goalie standpoint, for a Swede to do that, you had Tommy Salo, you had Hedberg, and the list goes on, that kind of broke it. But, Lindbergh was the one that started it off. Absolutely.
I feel like I've won already, guys. Al Jensen. Have you heard of that? I had not heard of or knew who Al Jensen was until I researched him.
Yeah. So when I was in Winnipeg, my goalie coach was actually Pete Peeters. And having
Pete Peeters,
great callback. We already talked about him on this show, so that's fantastic.
Oh, did you?
Yes, we did.
Yeah. So when Pete Peeters was, my goalie coach, Al Jensen, Pete had shared it with him and said it was there. But again, when you think of Washington Capitals, not as of late, but back in the 80s and 90s, you always think about the big, 4 period of overtime. Everybody went out to the club and came back, and the game was still going into the 5th period of overtime. You had Pete Peeters and Jensen, and but those are the goalies that you think about when the old time with Washington. He was a guy that had a good 4 years.
Yep.
And after that, it was, what do I do now?
Yeah,
lost the shuffle, maybe free agency or whatever, but it wasn't. He had a good career in the standpoint of a great backup, but it was always. You always want to go after your big wins, and then you look at your losses, but then you look at goals against and then save percentage. But what does he do for the organization? And he fit that era for a great backup, and that was it.
Well, that was it. And truly true to form, I tried to draft Pete Peeters in this draft, realized he played too many games, and then went with Al Jensen. So really, I really nailed it, you guys, in some way. And I grabbed the backup.
It's all coming together.
It's all coming together. And we're going to wrap it out because we've only got one more guy. And this was a guy who won the Vezina. And Mike was saying you'd be hard pressed to remember who won the Vezina with the Rangers. But I was back, of course, when we had the goalie systems. So you had like 2 goalies that would win a Vezina and 2,
right?
Still not bad numbers in those years.
No, not at all. And that's what happened, right? Because it is a true tandem. You know what I mean? And you see it now more than anything else with the goalies for Boston. Yeah. After every game, they go out and do the big hug. You know what I mean? And it's a big display of everything else. And because usually what happens is that you play your core guys and there's no camaraderie, there's no chemistry. You're not really, supporting because it's like, oh, I really want to play. But guys now accept their role. or they know where they at, and then it's a 6 goalie system, right? You got your 2 guys in National Hockey League, your 2 guys in the minors, and then you got 1 guy in college or 1 guy in pro or in juniors, or your guy over in Europe, and you kind of rotate them. So I was a 3rd goalie in a 6-man rotation. I'd go up National Hockey League, tap guys in the ass and say, good shift, and then tell me to go down to the minors and say, tell the guys not to buy the brand new BMW, buy the 3-year-old BMW. Date the dancer, don't marry the dancer. A couple of guys didn't listen to me on that one.
Sure.
But nonetheless, it was the opportunity to go out and know where you are now, because it's a business, and if you can support and you make a great living, and to be part of this, it's a short window, so it's pretty cool.
And so based on all of that, this was Gilles Villemure we were talking about there. And based on all that, what do you think, Sean? Which team do you like the most? And you don't have to pick favorites as us, Mike, Matt, and myself. Just pick favorite teams.
Yeah.
I'm going with Roman, or I'm going with the Roman pick.
Okay.
I had a feeling it was headed there.
Yeah, and not because of Philly. I think that was where it all kind of started, right? Like, I mean, there's so many backstories, guys, because I had played. I was fortunate to play, the 15 years, and I knew a lot of the stuff that's happening and how organizations work. But I thought that, like, he was that guy that was going to start that movement, and I think there's going to be another movement too. It truly is. There's another movement coming, and you know what? Ironically, guys, if we go back and think about it, that movement changed after every lockout.
Right.
So you're saying there's another movement coming. What is that movement that's coming?
I think it's going to, like before, you'd go to camp and get, you would get you get into training camp. Now it's like guys are monitoring their sleep, they're monitoring their workouts. Like, it's so, I don't want to say robotic, but there's got to be a little bit a correction. Because now you're looking at, okay, well, I have played 32 minutes, and like when I was in San Jose, and it was more than anything else, game's over, we're riding the bike and everything else, and the statistician would come in and say, oh, here's the stats, and guys, I played 7 minutes and 52 seconds. It's like, yeah, and you're making $3 million. Are you kidding me? Like, I mean, and so the thing is that the game is so fast, and I know this is a pretty big statement. Okay, you're going to see a lot. It's going to start seeing a lot more McDavids. And I say that because you're going to have all these trainers start doing, okay, now you got crossovers, 2 crossovers. He's so far ahead of everybody right now from his first 3 steps, that now goalies don't have to come out and challenge no more, because they're 6'5", stay in your net. And now it's mind-boggling, because it's an optical illusion, right? So if you guys are right-handed and you're going down the right side, you see all of his blocker traditionally. Well, the puck's against the boards, so he's never going to go short side. So don't play the short side.
Yeah.
Right.
It's too hard to do that. So it's going to be more of a mental game than it is going to be a physical, because that's going to be the standard. Everyone's going to be, a specimen.
Yeah.
Like, and again, not because it's Hockey Canada or USA Hockey or rest of the organizations, but I mean, my son played for the national program, and it's a factory. It's unbelievable to go, and we can talk about this off air or anything else on how it is, but the training they do, and the game situation minutes, how they put them in and everything else, it's absolutely phenomenal. It really, really is. But it's going to happen. They're going to have to change it, because I mean, guys are getting bigger and faster, and we always keep on saying that. And we're going to expand the rinks. We're not going to expand the rinks. It's just going to be quicker and faster. But are guys playing for contracts, or are guys playing because they want to play? You get jerseys on fire, but I mean, they're a real young team. And then you get Pittsburgh. God, you never want to hear about that with Chris Letang. But guys are getting older, and so where's that happy medium? Before you would get paid at the back end of your contract. Now you're getting paid at the beginning of your contract, because you want to get that element out of the situation, right? But I think there's going to be some teams that will see, flip-flop from top of the standings, for a few years, Like Chicago's taking it in the shorts now, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to, change that. Pittsburgh might, New York is on the way up. LA it struggles, Dallas is now coming up. But I mean, for a Filipino kid, that's, leading the league with the, behind Sega and Jamie Benn making $10 million,
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So really, at the end of the day, though, Sean, like a guy like Matt who won today, he's gonna have to change and have he's gonna have to humble himself, and then someone else is gonna come up like me or Mike and take over, right?
Yeah.
Matt's just like he's gonna have to involve the human element more.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, you did win best guys in the dressing room.
Yes, he won best guy in the dressing room. Sean, we can't thank you enough for doing this. We're excited for Cutter and for what he's going to bring to the next generation of Gauthiers. And thanks so much for joining us today on this day in sports.
Some of us came out better than others, but that's okay. There were so many guys, by the way, when you're looking at those particular, which I thought were better when I look back, were better than I thought they were. And there were some guys that I loved as a kid that were worse than I thought they were. I mean, growing up in Toronto, Bunny Larocque was a big goalie we all loved. But you looked at him and he didn't qualify for it. We were close, but he didn't qualify. He was often in the backup in the for the Habs. So he was back in the team Vezina. So like if he's Ken Dryden's backup, he's got a good chance of getting the Vezina but even his backup was great. And those Habs teams were great. Came to Toronto in the 70s when we were terrible, in the 80s and we were terrible and wasn't that great. But as a kid, he had a cool mask, so he was a cool goalie. You saw his actual numbers, not good.
Yeah, it's also too, like the NFL, like we were talking about with Rice, like it's an era thing too, right? Like some guys in the 90s, you notice goals against average and save percent like are lower, like guys because they were playing the trap, like teams weren't scoring, and as opposed to the 80s where like Gretzky and the Oilers and Bossy and the Islanders were scoring 11 goals every game. It's a totally different. So their stats are kind of they vary pretty widely depending on the era they played in. So it's hard to kind of compare in some ways, right? Like some guys really benefited from the way the game was played at the time, and other guys their sort of overall stats are. Well, I guess that's why you have advanced stats in hockey now to sort of compare those things, right?
And we also had, much like the Cy Young, which we talked about last episode, wins were highly rated, and then goalies' wins are highly rated.
Yeah.
And then the other stats get forgotten. So to your point, Billy Smith winning a Vezina in a year where maybe he could have or shouldn't have, they just won a ton of games.
Yeah.
And so that's how you're going to get it.
Yep. That's right. And then like that year that I talked about that Carey won, Chris Osgood was clearly punished for playing. That was the year the Red Wings won 62 games.
Wow.
And clearly the voters thought that Osgood wasn't the reason, which he obviously wasn't their best player, but he was 39-6 and didn't win. Because they decided that anybody could have won that year.
Not anybody, the net detective.
That's right. I think some of that was based on
because he made his goalie mask the mask, like Jim Carrey's the mask. Yeah. He had at one point he had that mask. Like he embraced that.
He did.
Yeah, absolutely did. Well, I tell you,
much
folks,
like the mask you're wearing right now.
December 6th.
You're much richer for the experience.
Yes, you are. Well, this brings to another end.
Another end.
We'll say
Another end.
That brings to conclusion another episode of This Day in Sports. December 6th has been truly exposed for the day it was. I'm Sandy Joe Bevins.
I'm Matt Gippen.
And I'm Mike Sherritt.
And we'll see you, listen to you, love you next time, as I always say to all my friends. Love you next time.
Turn it off.